Two cinema lenses, same model, same lighting, same focal length. I shot both side by side and I genuinely didn't know which one I was keeping until I sat in DaVinci Resolve. Now, here's the thing. This is not just another versus video. The last one I did comparing my Lumix S1II to the Nikon ZR. You guys came alive in the comments, so I'm doing it again. But this one is personal. I have owned both these lenses for months. I know them and I'm running this test because I'm trying to be more disciplined with my kit. I want to commit to one of these brands, one rendering, one focus through, one look. By the end of this video, I'll tell you which lens I'm actually keeping and which one I'm letting go. Drop a 1 in the comments right now if you think I'm keeping the DZOFilm Vespid Prime II. Drop a 2 if you think I'm going with the 7 Artisans Infinity series. I'll read every single one before the verdict and I'll want to see if you can read me by the end of this video. Let's see. Before we look at a single frame of footage, let me give you context because understanding what each of these lenses is trying to be will change how you read every test that follows. The DZOFilm Vespid Prime II 35mm t1.9. This is DZO's second generation cinema prime, available only in black, color match across the Vespid 2 set. You're getting an aperture range from t1.9 all the way to t22, an image circle of 46.5mm, meaning it covers not just full frame but vista vision. This is a real advantage over the competition. 80mm front diameter, taking 77mm filters, 13 elements in 9 groups, 10 iris blades, a 300-degree focus through, minimum focusing distance of 30 centimeters, and I weighed this lens myself, 850.4 grams with front and rear caps on. 790.2 without them. Now, if you're looking to build a full set, you've got the 18, 24, 35, 50, 85, and 105 millimeters. Now, for the 7 Artisans Infinity series, this is 7 Artisans making a serious play for the cinema market. Half a stop slower, wide open than the DZO. It covers full frame, but only full frame, no vista vision. Aperture range from t2.1 to t22, 11 aperture blades, actually one more than the Vespid 2, 14 elements in 9 groups, 82mm filter thread, a 330-degree focus through that's longer than the DZO, minimum focus distance of 33 centimeters, and this surprised me on the scale, 1,156.2 grams with caps open, 1,089.5 grams without the caps. That is over 300 grams heavier than the Vespid 2. So if you're building a full set, you've got 16, 24, 35, 50, 85, 105, and 135 millimeters. And the 16 millimeter is the only one in the set that starts at T2.5 instead of T2.1. I shot both lenses on very different bodies. The Blackmagic Pyxis 6K in BRAW open gate and the Lumix S1II in V-Log. Two completely different color science pipelines, two different sensor characteristics, and that matters because a lens does not just exist in isolation. It has to work with the camera it is paired with, and that pairing can either fight you or work for you. Now, the central question I'm answering here today is, does the extra money you spend on the Vespid 2 actually show up in your final image when you're shooting real people, real colors, in real conditions? Let's find out. Sharpness, but let me frame this properly. Forget test charts for a second. Let's look at how these lenses render a person's face in motion picture context. Both lenses hold up very well, both render the image cleanly, and on charts wide open, both lenses exhibit fall off towards the corners and have chromatic aberration in some areas. One just very slightly more than the other. And as usual, when you stop down to T2.8 or T4, corner performance really improves. And as you zoom in close, and I'm talking up to 6 times, you notice the Vespid 2 just edges the Infinity series just a tiny bit. Now, if you shoot weddings, music videos, narrative work with darker skin subjects like myself, anyone who has ever lit a melanated face beautifully on set, only to watch a lens render that face flat in grade. Most lens reviews on YouTube were not graded on darker skin. They review on grey cards and Caucasian skin and call it a day. That is the real gap in this industry, and it's part of the reason this channel exists. So if you've never thought about how a lens specifically renders melanated skin, watch this section 2 times. On a Pyxis 6K in B-RAW with the Vespid 2, look at what is happening in the midtones. There's a warmth in the rendering. That warmth is coming from the glass itself and it is flattering on skin. The DZO for me is warmer for these two lenses, and that is not a small thing. Now for the 7 Artisans on the same body, the color rendering has a slightly more cooler, more neutral character coming through the glass. It is subtle, but in a side-by-side comparison or in the grade, you feel it if you have well-trained eyes. And if you put both of these lenses on the same timeline, you have to put the 7 Artisans back toward the warmth area to match. And here's where it gets more interesting. On the Lumix S1II in Vlog, the S1II owns color science, runs warm by nature, and that warm pairs very well with the 7 Artisans cooler rendering. They offset each other and produce a pleasing result from what I've seen. So the camera pairing genuinely changes the conversation. DZO, which is warmer, the 7 Artisans cooler. Neither is wrong, but they require different starting points in grading. If you're a filmmaker shooting darker skin tones, drop a camera button in the comments. I'm picking up something. I'm building a list of which camera and lens combinations my audience is using, and hopefully I can share the results in a future video on this channel. Flare is subjective and it tells you a lot about a lens's optical design and coating quality. I tested both lenses under direct light. I can see how each one handles a hot source. Once again, not a huge difference between these two lenses, but the Vespid 2 slightly edges out the Infinity series on flare control. It's cleaner, more restrained. If you're shooting into practicals or in a direct situation where you can't always avoid a hot source in the frame, the DZO is going to protect your image slightly better, just very slightly, but it has the edge. And Bokeh is oversold as a spec, but how a lens draws out all the focus areas tells you a lot about its optical character. And there is one specific thing I want you to see in this test, because even though these lenses are very close, this difference is interesting. The Vespid 2's 10-blade aperture is doing what you expect from a Cinema Prime. The out of focus highlights are round, smooth, and they're not pulling your eye away from the subject. The rendering is balanced and clean wide open even at T1.9. The highlights are slightly cat-eyed at the edges of the frame, and that's standard optical behavior, and they're round out as you stop down. Now to the 7 Artisans Infinity, and I want to be precise because this matters. The out of focus highlights wide open at T2.1 start out cat-eyed, but they have a slightly spiky character. And if you look closely, you notice a greenish tint around the ring. The Vespid 2 controls this better. The rings are balanced and neutral. And in most grading situations, that green tint in the bokeh is something you need to be aware of, especially on a wide shot where out of focus highlights are prominent. That is one of the noticeable differences you would feel between these two lenses. Now let me talk about something nobody puts in the title but everyone notices on set, and that's weight. The DZOFilm Vespid 2 is over 300 grams lighter than the 7 Artisans Infinity. For a lens that is faster and more expensive, I think that's super impressive. 300 grams is a full half liter of water. You feel it on a handheld run, on a gimbal, on a long day shoot. If you're working on gimbals regularly, that weight difference is not trivial. On the physical mechanics, the Vespid 2's 80mm front diameter and gear ring placement are standard for cinema full focus systems. The 7 Artisans has a slightly longer 330-degree focus stroke, which can be useful for very fine focus pulls, but the heavier body shifts the balance of the whole rig. The DZO also covers Vista Vision, which means future proofing. And if you notice, the image from this is slightly larger than the image from the 7 Artisans. And if you ever pair with a sensor that benefits from that extra coverage, you're good. The 7 Artisans stops at full frame, and then there is this. The Vespid 2 carries Cooke Eye or Cooke Eye technology, real-time lens metadata, aperture, focal length, focus distance, all transmitted to compatible cameras and recorded into the file. That's amazing. So in post, you have all that data accessible on your shot like you would on a still photo lens. The 7 Artisans does not have this. For solo work, this won't change your day, but for VFX, heavy or larger production, it's significant to have what this lens has. Now, to focus breathing, where the image appears to zoom slightly as you pull focus, is the enemy of a clean rack focus in narrative work. And this is the test where I expected the Vespid 2 to win because it's the more expensive lens. I tested first with some dinosaur toys at different distances. Yeah, I have young boys. Then I tested again with a friend in the same setup, and both times the result was the same. The 7 Artisans Infinity actually has better breathing control than the Vespid 2. The image stays more stable as you shift focus on the Infinity series than it does on the DZO. The difference is small, but it is real, and it got me thinking. I was wondering if the Vespid 2's wider Vista Vision image circle is part of why that happens. A lens designed to project a larger image circle has different optical compromises than one designed to only cover full frame. So if you know more about this, or if you think I'm wrong, please let me know or drop your theory in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear it. I promised at the start of this video that I'll tell you which one I'm keeping, and I will. But before I do that, let me give you the breakdown so you can make the right call for your own work. The DZOFilm Vespid 2 is the right lens if you're building a match Cinema Prime set, one with Cooke eye metadata transmission and a slightly warmer rendering. If you're shooting paid narrative, commercial or branded work, especially where a focus puller is involved, if you want that extra half stop of light at t1.9 in low light, it generally matters. If you care about Vista Vision coverage for future proofing your kit, and if weight and rig balance matter to your workflow at over 300 grams lighter, the Vespid wins this every time. And I don't know if I mentioned the focus pulling on this or the focus ring is, for me, smoother and denser than that of the 7 Artisans Infinity. The 7 Artisans Infinity is the right lens if you're pairing it with a Lumix S1II specifically, or Lumix camera, because their bodies are warmer, they have a warmer color sign, and it offsets the cooler rendering beautifully. If you want the cinema glass experience at a significantly lower cost of entry, if you need the absolute cleanest focus breathing of the two, the Infinity genuinely edged the DZO from my own test. And if you're not pixel peeping and the greenish onion ring or slightly looser flare control won't affect your work you're doing. Now here's the honest truth. Neither of these lenses will be the reason your film succeeds or fails. The lighting of your subject matters more, your exposure decisions matter more, your story matters more, but your lens is your optical signature, and both of these lenses in the right hands will produce work you're proud of. Before the Vespid 2s were even released, I shot a lot on the Infinity series with my Lumix S1R Mark II before I had the S1II, and I genuinely enjoyed the look. It made me want to film more. So when I tell you what I'm keeping, know that I'm not dismissing the Infinity series, I'm choosing my direction. And as for which one I'm keeping, after everything I've tested, everything I've weighed up, is the DZO Vespid 2. The Vista Vision coverage, the warmer rendering on skin, the better flare control, the 300 gram weight advantage, and the fact that I can see myself building the full set over time. That is the direction I'm going with. I currently own the 16mm t2.5 and 85mm t2.1 from the Infinity series in white. I'm letting go of the 85 to put toward a Vespid 2 equivalent. I'm probably going to keep the 16 because DZO doesn't make a 16mm yet. They make an 18 but not a 16, so that one stays in the bag for now. So if you're starting with cinema glass, don't let the Vespid's price scare you off the 7 Artisans. The Infinity series will absolutely get you there. But if you're serious about where your kit is going long term, the Vespid 2 is the investment that makes more sense to me. Now, if you guessed correctly back at the start of the video, congratulations, you read me. And if you disagree with me, I also want to hear it. Tell me in the comments where I'm wrong, tell me what I missed, tell me which lens you choose and why. I read every comment on these videos. The back and forth in the comments is half the reason why I make them in the first place. Link to both lenses, full specs and pricing in the description below. And if this comparison helped you make a decision, or if it just made you want to go out and shoot something, that's exactly what we do here on Your Filmmaker. Real tests, real light, real people. And before you go, one question for the comments. What's the lens you regret buying, or the lens you wish you had bought sooner? I want to read those. Drop them below. I'll be in the comments reading them all along. And if you want to see me put the Vespid 2 up against the Series Jupiter set or any other budget Cine Prime lens, I've done the Typoc ones. I might probably do a comparison between the Vespid and the Typoc. Let me know in the comments below. And that's how I pick the next test. See you guys in the next one. It's your Filmmaker. God bless and peace.